Today we're going to look at a 2014 Focus with the battery light intermittently coming on. And spoiler alert, it's not going to be the alternator or the battery. We're going to start diagnosis on this by pulling all codes on all modules. The alternator on this vehicle is computer controlled. It's ran by the PCM over a single wire network, a LIN network. And I'm going to be using 4scan Lite today to retrieve all the codes on this vehicle. We'll give it just a minute to talk to all the modules on the vehicle. Okay, we've got a 2014 Focus. So we came back with two codes from the PCM on this. U012D, lost communication with generator. And the second code we have is U0284, lost communication with the active grille shutter. So we've got codes for two different things that would seem to be unrelated. But let's look at this for a second and think about how these could be interconnected. We've got the PCM, or the powertrain control module, we've got an alternator, and we've got a grille shutter actuator. Now all three of these are going to have power to them. The PCM and the grille shutter actuator are obviously going to go through a fuse, and the alternator is going to be a very large cable directly from the battery. All three are obviously going to be grounded. There's going to be a ground wire, or a couple of ground wires actually, coming out of the PCM. The active grille shutter is going to have a wire coming out of it that goes to ground, and the alternator is going to ground to the engine block through the alternator case. Now the alternator is going to have one other wire to it, and that's going to be the network communications wire, or the LIN wire from the PCM. And there's going to be a splice out in the middle of that wire, and that is going to go to the active grille shutter. Most LIN networks are just a single wire from a computer module to whatever it's got to communicate with. But for whatever reason, on this particular one, they did a splice out in the middle of the network wire and teed it off so it controls two different components over this network. And since both of our codes are lost communication codes, I'm definitely going to be taking a real hard look now at the LIN network on this vehicle, or on that particular circuit. So the wiring from the grille shutter actuator drops down in front of the radiator support and then is clipped to a lower air deflector panel, runs over to the driver's side of the vehicle, and then comes around the radiator support and has a 3-wire connector over on the side here. So I took the connector apart here just to inspect the pins and the connector, make sure there wasn't any moisture in it. And I'll show you what I found here. The pins in the connector are just completely gone. This thing is full of water. It's got rust in it. The pins are completely rusting away. And the female side of the connector is even worse. The pins are almost completely corroded away in it. I'm not sure how it was ever making connection or working. And the thing you got to think about this, so one of those is a network wire, which is going to be, it's going to pass messages by going high and low on the voltage at fairly high frequencies. Well, the other two wires that are in there along with it with all that water is a power and a ground. So depending on how much water is in there at any given time, they're going to be, at least with some resistance, shorting it to power or shorting it to ground. And that's going to kill communication on the network. And not just at that spot out to the actuator, but also the entire network line, including the alternator. So the repair for this is going to be two new connectors. And I'm going to put a pigtail on the harness end. And I'm just going to replace the harness from that connector all the way over to the grille shutter actuator. I think the price was about the same as what a pigtail was going to be for that harness, so it's easier to just do that and we don't have splices out in the middle of it. The connector at the grille shutter end, not the one I'm showing here, but the other end of that is kind of a pain in the butt to get connected. And the other one, we're just going to solder it and heat shrink the wiring and it should be good. I'm not going to bore you showing you a video of me soldering wires. We're trying to get that harness fought over to the grille shutter actuator. But after that was installed, all that was left to do was clear the codes and make sure they didn't come back. And that wiring repair fixed the problem on this car. I hope you found this helpful or interesting. If you did, please click the like button down below. I got a lot more great stuff coming up, so please subscribe. And as always, have a great week.